You are listening to Fox Radio 910 or 104.3, and I wanted to welcome you to Let's Talk About, presented by Crowning Touch Senior Moving Services, 6704 Williamson Road, Roanoke. And my name is Linda Ballantyne, founder and CEO of Crowning Touch, the only moving company that focuses on seniors making a move, and the only moving company that can write you a check, because we can sell what our clients no longer want when they plan a move and sell it all in our consignment shop or auction house. Then we split the proceeds 50-50, and it helps offset the cost of the move. So if you need a move, call Anna at 540-982-5800 and set up a free estimate. Now, let me introduce today's guest, Chris Moore, owner of Solid Rock Enterprises, and he's the regional group leader of widowed persons. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Linda. Glad to be here.
I am so happy you're here because you have a lot to share, and I want to start out by asking you where and when widowed persons meet, and then hopefully you can tell us what motivated you to get involved in the widowed persons.
Sure. So right now we have the second Monday of May and of June, 5:30 at Golden Corral in Town Square, and it is a group of people who, for anyone who has lost the person they plan to spend the rest of their life with, and we get together and we share our stories and we uplift each other and we talk and we cry and we are there for each other.
Yeah, and share resources probably, too.
Exactly, right? Exactly. And this is under the auspices of an organization called Soaring Spirits. Their website is soaringspirits.org. And how I got involved in this, like most people who find themselves in the club that nobody wants to belong to, which is people who have been widowed. I was living my life. January of 22, my wife Barbara, who I'd been married to for 33 years, was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. And on July 31st, she went to meet Jesus, and I was left alone.
Right.
And to say that you are not prepared for something like that is the understatement of the century. I'm a contractor. I help people to modify their homes. I've been telling people for years, people become caregivers suddenly. You should make sure your home is accessible. You should make sure it's safe, because you never know what's going to happen.
Especially if you're planning on staying there, which everybody likes to say. Over 75% of the seniors right now plan to get old, age in place.
Exactly. And so I said, be prepared, be prepared. And when it happened to me, I was so unprepared. The physical part, that was pretty easy for me because I know how to make those modifications. The mental and emotional preparedness was just not there. I was not in any way, shape, or form prepared to lose my wife. The Bible says that the two shall become one flesh, and after 33 years, that's exactly you are. And then there was one day afterwards, I told my son, I said, they call it your better half, but I feel like about 3/4 of me is gone.
Right.
And he told me, he said, Daddy, he said, even a quarter of you is more than most men. And that was very sweet of him to say that. But, in the days and weeks and months, you don't know what's up. You don't know what's down. You have emotions happening all at the same time, emotions that you never imagined you would ever have, and at the same time, and joy and anguish and pain and hopelessness and lack of purpose and lack of direction, and what do I do with myself now?
Well, you had a different, if I can interrupt, you had a different type of closure. You had a more hands-on burial experience with your wife than most people who hand off that whole part of the experience. Why don't you share with us, because it was pretty powerful the way you did that.
Well, when she died, and she died with a smile on her face and a sense of peace in that ICU room that was just, you could cut it with a knife. It was
wow,
very palpable and comforting. But we went to the funeral home. We were talking about arrangements, and we had bought 16 acres of wooded property about a year before. Our dream, all of our married life, was to get out of town and move out in the country and build a house in the woods. And so we finally had this piece of land, and then she died. And the thought occurred to me, wow, wonder if we can bury her on our property.
Right.
And one of my other sons said, oh, yeah, you can do that. He said, I looked into it. I turned to him and I said, why did you look into that? He said, I don't know. I just on a whim, I thought I was curious. And so we found out what we had to do. We had to get a family cemetery on the deed, and it had to be so many feet from water and so many feet from a structure and so on and so forth. But I was back in the woods. Barbara was a very private person, and the idea of her remains being in the woods with, animals that she loved and not in a public place where strangers are walking over her was very comforting.
Well, that's special because everybody doesn't get that option, do they?
And so me and three of my sons hand dug her grave. It took us 3 days. We were up in the woods, and it was a very, very healing time. And the funeral director had told us that one of their funeral directors they had who was Jewish said that was the Jewish tradition, is the family dug the grave and buried their loved one.
Wow.
And that was the last thing you could do for your loved one that they could not thank you for.
Oh. Huh.
Because the whole time she was sick, everything I did for her, she thanked me. From every glass of water to every, when her feet hurt, everything was just, and so that really resonated with me. But we hand dug the grave, and we had to build a footbridge over the creek because there was no bridge.
And then you hit a rock.
Then we hit a rock. We got about 5 feet down, and we hit a big rock, and so we had to go to the shop and get a generator and an electric jackhammer and push it up through the woods in a wheelbarrow and get it down. And then they were calling for rain. We put up an awning over the grave but we buried her with, we had the family there. We had the bagpiper. And
did you put her in a shroud, you said? Did you do that? Or
I did not personally, no. The funeral home, they put her in a shroud. They put her in a wicker casket.
Right.
It was, it was a natural burial.
Right.
Everybody handles these things differently, but the idea of embalming the body always seemed a little strange to me because ashes to ashes and dust to dust, and her spirit and her soul is in heaven.
That's right.
And her body is what's left in this earth, and it's going to degrade, and one day at the resurrection it'll come back to life.
Yep.
And so
I love that scripture. To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord.
Amen. So. Then when I found out, and as I'm going through this and I'm looking for help, I'm looking for solutions, I'm looking for direction in my life, and I found Soaring Spirits, and it's an organization that was founded by a woman who lost her husband in a bicycle accident, and found out that they have regional social groups all around the country. And when I went to their Camp Widow last March of 23 in Tampa, and said, well, we don't have anything like that in Roanoke. I'm going to start one.
Yeah.
And so, it's been pretty slow starting. We usually have 3 or 4 people, but, the idea is just for people who, just would like to get together and talk to somebody else that understands what they're feeling.
Right, gotcha.
Because
it's not a topic that you can bring up at the average,
it
bingo game.
And people try. I mean, I saw so many people that would struggle and try to say the right thing and invariably say absolutely the wrong thing.
Right.
Or people that would see you and avoid you because they knew they had no idea what to say, and they didn't want to say the wrong thing. And just the whole concept of death and of birth in our society is like hidden behind a shroud.
We've made it remote. It's some sort of experience that we've distanced ourselves
It used to be people were born at home and died at home, and you saw that, and the joy and the pain and all of that's part of life.
That's right.
But in our society, it's hidden behind a veil. You take the funeral home takes care of all that.
Right.
It's all prettied up. They use terms like opening the grave. They use terms that kind of hide, the reality of it. And the fact is that these physical bodies are not permanent.
That's right.
None of us are going to live in the flesh forever. And so you're going to have to deal with it and face it. And somehow keeping it behind that shroud until it kicks you in the teeth just didn't work very well for me.
Correct. I got you. There's one thing that I want to just take a moment and read to people out there so we can remember to treasure those who are with us right now, because as Chris said, you never know when it's going to happen. Here's something that I want to read real quick. A good friend of mine unexpectedly lost his wife. A couple months later, we were golfing together, chatting about nothing. He asked what my dinner plans were, and I told him Wifey wanted my homemade chili and cornbread, but I didn't feel like stopping at the store. We golfed a few more minutes when he quietly said, "Make the chili." It took me a few minutes to realize we were no longer talking about dinner. It was about going out of your way to do something for someone you love, because at any moment, they could unexpectedly be taken from you. So today I'm sharing with you that wisdom handed to me by my dear friend that I've thought of many times since that day. Next time someone you love wants you to go for a walk or watch a football game or play a board game or just put your phone down and give them your undivided attention, just do it. Make the chili. I think that's so touching.
Yeah.
Because, we have those instances where, we know we love the person that we're living with, but we take so much for granted. And I just like that line, make the chili.
Yes.
The other thing that impressed me about that soaring spirit, I encourage anybody who's suffering a loss, and I lost a husband and a child myself, so I have some clue as to what people deal with. But they had fantastic blogs on soaring spirit, and they've divided, they're thematic blogs. So they've got all the types of, what do we call it? Is it widowship? Widowness? They've got every type of widow listed, whether you were a widow with children or you're a widow who, dealt with somebody who died of cancer, or you are a widow who, has no children. They line out all the different, in other words, there is somebody speaking to you on Soaring Spirits International with all sorts of blogs, and they're very encouraging, and I encourage you to perhaps blog yourself or make a contribution. You can donate a contribution. And that reminds me, Chris, I was going to ask you about some of the things that you know that people do, because there might be somebody listening right now who just lost somebody. And let's talk about some of the things. I've heard that sometimes journaling helps. Have you heard of other things along the way that steps that people take to go try and step out of that grief shroud and back into move forward into life?
Yeah, it can be journaling. It can be music. It can be exercise. Oftentimes, you walk back into the house that you've shared with somebody for however many years you've been married or you've lived together, and everywhere you turn is a reminder, and everywhere you turn, and sometimes it's just too soon. And, traveling sometimes can be very therapeutic for, just to get in a different environment, get outside in nature. It's different for everybody, and you have to find something that helps you, whatever that might be. Right. If it makes you feel a little bit better, then embrace it. And, oftentimes getting together with other people who have also lost someone is therapeutic in that, you talk about it and it's like, yeah, nobody else gets that.
Right.
Nobody else understands. Oh my goodness, I can, and so many people try to hide and to stuff those emotions and
and I did that.
Yeah.
I did that. I went on out and got a job after my husband and daughter died, and I thought that was the thing to do. I'll just bury myself in some new project. But I couldn't hold on to that job. I had to quit, and I did go to bed for a month after that. I don't even remember. I remember the color of the sheets, and I remember watching flies buzz around on the ceiling. I was out in the country, and I cried for a month. And when I got out of bed, then I left the grief there. A certain level of grief.
Right.
Because it haunts you in different ways and comes up unexpectedly.
Right.
But it was, God healed me.
Yeah.
I mean, that's,
Well, and I had somebody say years ago, I'll never get over it, but I will get through it.
Right. That's excellent.
And I think that's a very valuable insight to have. And also gratefulness.
Right.
I lost Barbara after 33 years of marriage, but in our first year of marriage, she got encephalitis. And she was miraculously healed from encephalitis. She was in her hospital room praying. She knew who her three boys from her first marriage were, and she knew who Jesus was. She told me later she didn't know who I was. She knew she liked me, but she couldn't quite figure out. And we'd been married 3 months.
It's an inflammation of the brain, correct?
Yes. Encephalitis is where you're a viral infection of the brain, and your brain swells, and normally it swells against your brain.
Whoa.
And you die. 90% of people die.
Wow.
90% of people who don't die lose all their short-term memory.
Wow.
And she was, there's no other way to say, she was healed. And she had seizures. She went blind.
Oh my God.
She prayed for 4 months that God would take her seizures away. She woke up one morning, I don't have to take my seizure medication anymore.
Wow.
And so it occurred to me that if somebody had come to me at that time and say, no, she's not going to die. She's going to live 33 more years and bear you 3 more children, I would have been ecstatic.
Right. Yeah.
And so I have a choice. Do I grieve because I lost my wife at 55? Yes. I do. But I'm also thankful for those 33 years.
Correct.
And so I get to choose which one I'm going to spend more time with. The thankfulness or the anguish and the pain and the sorrow. But you have to go through the grief.
Right.
You can't go around it, can't go under it. It's the valley of the shadow of death. I always just thought that was a term in the 23rd Psalm. It's a real place.
Right.
I walked through it. It's the valley of the shadow of death. And, since then, God has blessed me with another marriage. I got married in August, and the fact that, He's allowed me to have, 2 women in a lifetime that love me and care for me. And it's just, I'm so thankful for what He has given me, and the fact that He has the ability to take our deepest anguish and pain and turn it into joy and bring something good out of it and bring regeneration and bring life and bring thankfulness out of something that just felt like it was the end. It was the end.
I was suicidal when God rescued me. My face was in the mud. So, as a matter of fact, and I went to a support group, like the widowed persons. I don't think they had widowed persons back then when I was 33. But I remember walking in and seeing people that still couldn't walk their dog 20 years after they lost a child, for instance.
Right.
They couldn't even go outside.
Yeah.
And actually what that did for me, it had almost a reverse effect. I looked at that and I said, well, I certainly don't want to be like that.
Right.
I don't want to be, So God always allows you choices. And you can, take any fork you want in the road as the path presents itself to you.
Right.
You can stay on the path and go left or right. But I definitely, it's choosing life.
It is.
Really, because your relationship with the Lord is your relationship with Him. And if we trust Him, then we trust him to continue to work all things together for good.
Right.
Because we love him.
Amen. And there were times when I was feeling particularly low and just didn't feel like getting up or moving or doing anything. And I heard Barbara's voice very clearly saying, Chris, that's not honoring to your loved one. A lot of people say, you should feel this way after X number of days. You should do this. You should do that. You should stop shoulding all over yourself.
Right.
There's no should. There's no timeline. There's no
correct, right?
There's no correct way to handle grief.
Great. Yeah.
It's your.
There's no one size fits all.
It's your grief, and you have to walk through it, and you have to find a way through it, and day by day, minute by minute, find a way to live another day.
There's somebody else. I took another quote that I really liked because it's a man who lost his wife. And this is precious because there is a burden that you're talking about if somebody goes before you. And he was willing to carry this burden, but this is what he said. He said, I'm happy because she left before me. She didn't have to go through the agony and pain of burying me and of being left alone after my departure. I thank God for that. I love her so much, I wouldn't have liked her to suffer that way.
Yeah.
So there is an extra responsibility that gets laid on the person. And then you've also got children. Mm-hmm. And as parents, we're modeling all the time.
Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest gifts you gave your children was to let them see how you handled that most painful departure and how you surrendered yourself and how you let God repattern your life. Mm-hmm. Because that's what happened, when
right.
your second wife came in. Tell me a little bit, we've got 5 more minutes or something. Tell me a little bit about how that felt for somebody else that's out there. I know you're not thinking about it. I certainly wasn't thinking. You don't think about love or remarriage or anything when you're in the depth of that.
Right.
But with the process of breathing in and out,
right.
you come into contact with people, and you're going to come into contact with people who appreciate you.
Yes.
And will show you great love, and then you're going to have a choice.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that we, were created by God to live in a vacuum. Genesis 2:18 was my verse for a while, which says it's not good for the man to be alone.
Right.
And when you've shared your life with someone and you don't, loneliness is a pervasive thing. It you just feel that that emptiness. And when I met Michelle and there was that a part of my heart came to life again, and a part of my heart started living again.
Right.
And I think that
was it awkward for her? Do you think
she was very understanding from the very beginning. I mean, that was one of the things that
had she lost somebody?
No, she hadn't, but she's
right.
a very empathetic person.
Yeah.
And she, empathy is one of those things that people have in different measures, like every other quality. But
and God can stretch it, which is what happens when you go through what you just went through.
And she has always been very, very understanding and very caring and sensitive towards how my grown children feel about someone else coming in
right.
into their mother's home, and just has, like I said, been extremely understanding and supportive, and just a great blessing to me.
I was looking to see the next time you all were going to meet again.
So,
because I just wanted to remind people that I think you said, did you say the second Monday?
Second Monday. So May the 13th, 5:30 at Golden Corral. And you can, call me if you have questions or want to let me know you're coming. Also, we have a group on Meetup. You can go to meetup.com, and it's you can find the group on there and sign up there as well. And then June the 10th, same time, same place.
Okay,
and then
that'll be the next one after the 15th,
right.
June the 10th.
Yeah, and then we'll just, going forward, as if we've been having 3 or 4, but as more people come and we get a bigger group, I mean, we're certainly open to doing different activities that people enjoy.
So you share a meal together when you get there?
We share a meal together.
Room there at the Golden Corral for you to,
Yeah.
And it's a nice place. One other question: I heard the word deathiversary for the first time when I was looking at the website, and basically it's the anniversary of when the person died. Is that particularly hard for people? I was able to sidestep
I think that,
a lot of that.
Again, it everybody's different. For some people, their loved one's birthday might be more difficult.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Holidays in general, Christmas, the first Christmas for me was just devastating. I've always loved Christmas, and I thought, well, we'll put up the lights, and the joy of Christmas will come in and help fill some of this, and it just magnified it. It just made it that much more obvious that she's no longer here.
I gotcha.
And so, and then some. There's the first of everything. There's the birthday. There's then the kids' birthdays, and then there's, we've had a grandchild born since she's been gone, and you think, well, she'll never be here to see that birth, to see that graduation, to see that wedding, to see, So there's secondary losses that you have to get through as well.
Well, listen, I just want to thank you. If Chris has got a lot more to share with you, if you want to show up on the 13th of May at the Golden Corral, you'll get to meet him. I want to thank everybody for listening to Fox Radio 910 and 104.3. Chris would also like to share his phone number with you, 540-556-0650. And you've been listening to Let's Talk About, sponsored by Crowning Touch Senior Moving Services.